Hey, welcome back everybody. Thanks for watching the Travel and Goof here talk about Overpower. Today we're going to have a little bit of a different video because we are going to be reconstructing a deck that I built that has not performed the way that I wanted it to. So, this is a combat deck. We've got King Arthur. Actually, I'm going to start off. We've got Leonidas. This is the big heavy hitter of the deck. With his great 8 combat or 21 threat points. And he's just got some incredible specials. I mean, you can throw these 8s out for attack or defense in addition to the 8s that he can hold, which just makes him a beast. He's got a great teammate or self-avoid, 1 per deck. He's got this nice 6 brute force, so not really offsuit because it's kind of the second main stat tied with the intelligence. But still, it's a great attack that, if it's successful, can cause a target character to not be able to play specials for a remainder of battle. And then if it's not successful, you just reshuffle it back. So it's a card that they are going to want to block, especially if they've got a lot placed. And then this one I think is really interesting. I was originally running with another copy in the deck, but we get to beef up the defense of the team by making all power cards act at +1. So I think that's also really great because then these 7s are able to block 8s that are out there and it lasts for the entire game. So that really helped the defense of the team. So let's talk about the other characters. We had Lancelot. So this is actually the focus kind of the team. You can see how many specials I was running to try and make this work. But he is essentially going to be the funnel for all attacks to your team and from your team as much as possible, because he's got this awesome card called Sword and Shield, which he starts the game with from his inherent. His power card attacks are +2 for the remainder of battle, and then you can discard it to avoid an attack. So that second one actually has turned out to be a little bit less useful than I thought, but his power cards are +2 is pretty good. And then every time you try and get this back, you just want to play it, pin it to him, and then all his cards become more powerful when you have it out. So he's got this awesome 5 multi, which can act as an attack, but then it can also be used as a defense when that's active. So that's been, a nice benefit. He's got his 7 or 10, which, I mean, you can't say no to a nice 10 attack. And then he's got his essentially fetch cards. So there's a number of them. This is kind of what we would try and do. You'd get the Sword and Shield up. Then they try to attack the rest of your team, your heavy hitter or King Arthur, and then ideally you'd be trying to pull a Chivalrous Protector to shift that attack onto Lancelot so he can take the hit or defend as needed. I don't think I was running enough of these. I almost would run 4 with the the goal of funneling everything I can to Lancelot, but then you'd just be dealing with a lot of dupes by that point. Because you want this to go to Lancelot, and then if they're doing a teamwork, then all the follow-ups also have to go to Lancelot, or any of these, kind of make additional attack specials. So this is extremely pivotal to making this deck work, because otherwise they're not going to want to target Lancelot. He's strong with the +2 bonus from Sword and Shield, but these other characters have got some more potent attacks. Because ideally, you'd be shifting onto him, at the end of the round you'd be discarding this, but you can get it back with these 2 sets of fetch cards. So the Knight of the Round Table will let you remove a hit from current battle or permanent record, so take a hit and then just do this to get Sword and Shield into play. Almost act as a preternatural healing. Or you'd be doing this to get yourself +2 venture. Now, I liked both of these in principle because originally I was running not Baker Street, but I had Asclepion that would let you remove some hits. But I was finding that it just wasn't triggering enough, so I was going to try something different. But that would be cool because, you know, you're taking hits anyway. You don't need to do a 2 or 3 for 1 card to transfer it, then block it when you can just remove it next turn. So that was in part what I thought was, you know, okay, Lancelot's going to take hits, he's going to heal, and then, you know, I can do this to, you know, pull the Sword and Shield back and then gain Venture, which, as you'll note, I get 2 from Watson and 1 from King Arthur. So some battles I'd be at +5. So sort of its defensive turtle strategy would really help. So that's what I thought, but what I found is that everyone actually would come for King Arthur instead. And that's problematic because I'd lose my Venture, and it turns out that he can't do that much to defend himself. So he's got these cards, Lead from the Front, which can defend both himself or a teammate, and it's fantastic. And because I have Lancelot, it becomes an avoid 6 as opposed to just a 4. So these were able to protect him as people threw attacks, but then I would be relying on 1 or 2 other shifts to come to Lancelot, but they just keep throwing more attacks at Arthur. And then if he, you know, goes out, I lose access to these incredible 1 per deck specials. And then I guess finally I should talk about Dr. Watson here. I had him in reserve, trying mainly just get the 2 Venture, because ideally with enough defense up front, you're not really having him come up. So trying to do some not a bad detectives, that way I can burn some of their hands with Baker Street, and then, you know, have a couple of things just in case he did come up, include another sort of shift type move. But realistically, I don't think that he's the best choice outside of his Venture option. And Lancelot, I don't know if I'm just not playing it enough, but he just doesn't seem to have the shifts needed to really make him work. And that's even playing with the Chronicle or Warlord of Mars, depending on what you want to call it, where you're able to shift an additional attack, you know, choose King Arthur 1 round, and then you were able to put all attacks onto Lancelot, and so that just acts as a mega shift. But I don't think that was enough. But because I did this, I also ran a few basic and training universe cards, like 1 of each here. I think that also helped me out in case of some of those other events that popped up, and because I was playing one of those decks. And when they count to Venture, then it actually made these worthwhile to have in the deck, I felt. But anyway, I wanted to take a look at what I can do to change this deck, and the benefit of Leonidas primarily. We want his heavy hits. Ideally, I would like to keep King Arthur. He's such a defensive character, and the Venture is awesome. But I think that Dr. Watson and Lancelot could be subbed out. So we're still looking at +3 points. So I want, I think, a smaller character, but I set aside a few of the options that I could have. So first of all, I would play Tarzan, or at least have the option. I don't have a stack of his cards, and I don't feel like, you know, buying the individuals. Maybe the rest of my box will have one, but in the meantime, Tarzan's gonna sit. So I've got Mr. Hyde, Robin Hood, Sun Wukong, 3 Musketeers, Van Helsing, Zorro, Tars Tarkas, and Korak. And then, knowing that there's a lot of intelligence pairings, I also have, I guess, the option to throw in Sherlock Holmes and kind of splash into slightly more of a split deck should I want to. So let's take a look at what we even have. One cool option would be to throw Sun Wukong in to get a backup 8 for the team, or 2 on the front line there. He's got some pretty powerful cards. Discard all and heal, so that would lend towards Asclepion as well. The Void, that also just becomes even more powerful if you're behind. Same thing with an 11. Discard placed, you just want to stack up those 6s if possible. And then the Avoid and Semi-Lockout. It's a strong deck, and according to some, it seems to be, a lot of people are saying that that kit is just incredibly powerful. But it's going to be tough to get a 22-point character in here, because he would need his own 16, and then I'd have to get rid of King Arthur and sub out an 17-point option to balance out Leonidas. So there's Billy the Kid is not in here. I had him in the original deck, and I just did not really like the way that that's played. It definitely made it offensive, because you can just throw his numerical specials from reserve, but I think that he's out as well, and I don't think that Sun Wukong is going to fit. So another option, if I want to take out the defensive option of Lancelot, Korak is kind of a substitute for that. Because, this is pretty incredible. For remainder of game, all attacks on Korak's team are shifted to Korak. You get that, you put a Gemini in so you can search for it, have twice the chance of getting it. And then he serves the same purpose that Lancelot did, where he's taken all the attacks so that King Arthur and Leonidas can get off scot-free. So I like the idea of that. I don't have the King of the Jungle, so this +6 venture total is not quite as effective, but 6 is never anything to scoff at. Got so many of these. And then handy, offsuit energy that can't be defended quite as readily. 6 that can go to reserve. So if, I can almost start pairing that with Mr. Hyde if I wanted to, and then I have enough points for a base. This is such a bizarre card. I don't know why it's a 1 per deck, just because you can have a better ability to combine. But the 2-for-1 where you can just avoid the single attack and you lose 2 cards, it seems very punishing. And then he gets an Avoid. We wouldn't have Jane or Tarzan, so it's not quite as powerful. But I think he is a good option to take over Lancelot's role. And said that if I wanted to, we can double up on the reserve hits, because Mr. Hyde has a few cards like Trample that lets you hit a reserve character if it's defended. Asclepion pair as well. And then, this can be thrown against the reserve character. So there could be a few doubled up type of things there, where now I'd be running, let's see, I'd be at +2, +3, -2, so down to 1 extra, and then down 2. So I'd be able to run like a Spartan training grounds or something, which actually would let me put in Leonidas's card that makes trainings a lot more beneficial. So this would be, you place some training power cards in there. So I already had one in my deck for the Chronicle of Mars. So that would be an option here. I think running these characters in addition. I'd be worried that I'd be losing out some of the heavier hits, because Hyde's in reserve, so he's not doing much until he comes up. And then King Arthur's got a few big ones. Leonidas obviously has got his big ones, but then Korak's, his attacks are sneaky, but they're just 3, 4, 6. So I'm not really sure about that as the solution, but it's out there. All right, another option will be Van Helsing. So I really like this character. He's got the good 7 combat here to facilitate. He's got some backup intelligence, so he can keep that as a secondary stat. He's got his negate, which the team doesn't have one right now, so that would be very helpful. Kind of another healing type move, but that doesn't really pair well with anything just yet. This is great, kind of doubles up with King Arthur's remove all remainder of battle, remainder of game attacks, avoid universe, but here's where it gets real fun. I think they call this a JW from the old thing. It's a 3, makes an attack, follow-up attack, and then neither can be defended with a special card. Like, how awesome is that? You just avoid everything, force them to take the 3s and whatever else you follow up with a power card. And then look at that, 6 multi. It's got the offsuit for energy, which is fantastic. And so this, I think, would be a really awesome option. The thing we would want to make this work would be see if either Asclepion can get paired up, or if there is a reserve character, maybe bring back Billy in this case, just because you'll be dealing with so many more pressure as well as kind of the extra defense. So he's good. What else would we be able to fit in with Van Helsing? So be another 20, 20, 21. So actually that would not be possible because we'd need a 15-point character in order to support it, because we've got +4 and there's no X babies, so that pretty much takes out Van Helsing unless we were to replace King Arthur. And I kind of don't want to do that because you can heavy as the head onto Leonidas's 8s again, throw those out. There's just a lot of big cards that, you know, his defense kind of helps out with. So I would love to make a deck with Van Helsing. I love his stack, but I don't think that that works either. And so I think that's the same with all these 20 stat characters, which is going to remove them from the running as well if I want to keep King Arthur in. So these Robin Hood and Sherlock Holmes, which, let's take a look at Robin. You know, again, his stuff lends very well to this team. He's got a brute force power card combined with a universe, so that kind of makes the training aspect again work out. Teammate may avoid 1 attack with a combat icon and then draw for it. This is good, but I think there are going to be a lot of combat decks in this first set. You know, Zoro, Sun Wukong, just a lot of characters are pretty powerful. So that's probably, at least at the current moment, more beneficial. A nice 4 that can discard a card, 2-for-1 swap, is Burst over here, and then Steal from the Rich, where he gets to discard a place card, which is also very nice. You can swap that, get rid of someone's 8s or one of their big specials. And he's probably got a 6th card, but I just don't have it yet. So, I mean, I think this is, if I had more of his cards, this would be a good option. It just puts a lot of pressure, I think, on the opponent, as well as gives you some options for real big bursts. I have to look up what his last special is. I wonder if that would make the day. And then Sherlock Holmes. This, you know, he's still got a decent combat, would add a negate to the team. Split the 8s. That's, I don't know if I really want to do that. It, you know, pairs well with King Arthur because, you know, you have a 6 backup, but then I don't have, you know, really 8 down to a 6. So then all my 7s would be combat, it would look like. And then split the 8s. I feel like Sherlock Holmes would be drawing most of the attention in this. Although King Arthur still can do his avoids, but they're going to be a lot weaker now. So maybe he wouldn't take as many hits. I think overall, I don't even know who they focused. They might even just pull Leonidas now that they don't have such a defense involved there. So Sherlock's got his 5 that reveal hand. That's obviously very good. You get the information, but it really peaks when you got Baker Street. Draw a card, or sorry, discard a card from an opponent's draw pile. That's pretty awesome. He's got a lockout, which is super handy. He's got negates. That one's the full negate. And then they only play defensively. I think, you'd run the event deck that lets you, I think it's King of the Jungle actually, that lets you negate defensively with Sherlock Holmes. And then, his 4 multis, that also is really good. So this would be a extreme offsuit blend where we'd be shifting off of combat. I like the idea, but at the same time, I think that's going to change the flavor of the deck beyond what I want it to go to. So if we take him out, for keeping King Arthur, Leonidas, we put in Korak, blue with that, and then a Gemini to get it out. I mean, a +6 venture, that's good. Probably some of all of these, maybe hit more of his 6s in, but throw some Korak in, and then like I said, these guys balance out. If I run a 16, then I can do Spartan Training Ground. And so Training Ground would probably be pretty good, because again, all characters are low on energy and brute force, so I try and load up some power cards on the low end with that, so that we can play his Training Ground. Alright, so this is what would kind of change the focus of the deck a little bit, where you get all your training back, so you'd be wanting to throw them out from Spartan Training Ground as much as possible. And then whenever you play a Training Universe card, you get to draw a card. So it kind of functions like some of the other, Asclepion, where you get to make another attack, or Barsoom, where you get to fetch a card. Kind of pairs very well with Spartan Training Ground. And so if that's the case, we've got 2, 22, 43, and we get up to 60, which means we got 16 points. So hide would be one option. Like I said, he helps kind of give that reserve pressure with Korak. Theoretically, we can also have Jane Porter in. So we would be able to pull a 16 stat character in, which again, Watson kind of lines up, but won't help us aside from his plus venture. We could also do Jane Porter, Mr. Hyde, or Angry Mob. I think Angry Mob's cards would be very cool to throw up in there because they're very, very aggressive. I like it. I mean, you have a really strong 7. You've got his 2 multi that adds a whole lot of pressure. 4 making additional defense. So he's a really good card, I think, but his stats don't align. So Jane would be a good option. With her intelligences, really makes a strong intelligence backup stat, where I can throw even a bunch of teamworks in for intelligence. She's got this 7, which is kind of a must defend, although it can't be played from reserve. She does have a few other combined with all those other remove remainder of battle and screw with people. But anyway, this, which would be pretty awesome, just keep throwing some 2s at them. And then, you know, your void, which is nice, but realistically, this is the major card that she'd be playing. So I don't really think it's that beneficial until one of your teammates is killed. Mr. Hyde, he also has some cool cards. I almost want him up front instead. But I feel like I don't want to move King Arthur or Leonidas down. Korak does not do anything from reserve, and the goal is to try and get him taken out pretty quick. So I feel like having Mr. Hyde, at least some of his cards, would be beneficial, because maybe the reserve character on their end would be pretty low, and you can keep pummeling on them. Almost would not run this at all. I want him to take some hits. So that's what we'd be looking at. He's got some great backup stats, but then won't be able to use training cards. So I think Jane Porter might take it, because if I remember correctly, yep, his avoid becomes stronger if Jane's in the team. So I think we're going to go with that. See if I can finalize a deck using Jane Porter, Korak, Leonidas, King Arthur, and Spartan Training Ground. Alright, so I'm just going to take a look at some of his specials. So these are still in. Can't have any more of those, unfortunately. Probably don't want to run more, but I'm going to add another special of his. King Arthur's Avoid has become less useful, so I want to run more of, probably, you know, 2 is still fine. It's going to defend him a little bit, and you can throw it on a teammate, so they're going to have some low cards. I think his cards there are fine. I have an option to put his Knights of the Round Table, but I don't like this. I'm going to be behind anyway, and then you're going to, you know, use up some of your turns, take some more hits in order to reduce their mission card venture. So I think we're going to keep that. Korak, I put in his holographic version of actually a lot of his cards, because I'll sleeve them. So might as well keep one of his 1 per decks in there. It's a brute force, so I don't have to run as many of those. So he'll have his Void. Let's get a pair of Avoids in, since they're stronger. Definitely his Shift. Definitely, let's get 2 of his JWs in. And then might as well 2 of his 6s too. And then I think a like father, like son to round that off. So again, it'll be Korak special heavy. So let's get another. I didn't have that. Oh, I did have a Gemini in here, the old alt art version. So we'll keep that in. Definitely keep the Avoid, Fairy Protection, and Shift. I think those are really good to keep pressure off of the guys that want to stay alive. I might swap out these energies. I'll see in a moment. Jane Porter does not, I don't want to load her up too much since he's in reserve, but her 1 per decks are fantastic. Although I worry that I'm just doubling too much up on this remove from remainder of battle, remainder of game. Probably want to see if I can get a second one of those. I think she might be in one of my other decks. Her Voids are fantastic, because then you discard a place card, but you know it's going to be attacking Jane. And then I would want to run one of these, but I don't want to overload her too much from the reserve. So we'll just do those. And then let me get out a power pack, and I will show you what the final deck build looks like. All right, so let's show you what the final deck turnout is. It's going to be 63 cards. We've got Korak, Leonidas, King Arthur, and Jane Porter. 63 cards. 3 of those are going to be the training cards on the Spartan training grounds. I pulled off the training from in the deck and added Teamworks instead. I also got rid of the longbow. As nice it would be to throw any of these up over the top of anything. I think I've got enough training cards to make the event here worth it, and their bonus count's higher anyway. So we've got the same specials that I talked about, same Leonidas, King Arthur, Jane Porter. Didn't have a second one of her 2, so we kept it out. I've got Teamworks. So I lowered some of the Teamworks. I've made it so we've got a pair of Intelligence and a pair of 7 Fighting. That's going to help, I got Brute Force and Energy in these cases, and we've got Intelligence as the backup. So we've got a few of those power cards. And then kind of the annoying part is that you can't have duplicates for these. So the Strength and Energy ones that I wanted, you can only have one of those. In these case, I'm going to be pairing it with stuff that's not as useful, because that's only going to be for Jane. That's only going to be for Leonidas, so it limits my trainings slightly. But for my power pack, I've got 2 8s. I know a lot of people would run 3, but with only the mono 8 character, I'm not sure how well I can defend him unless Korak gets his card. So we'll just go around with 2. King Arthur's got the backup for 7s, so run that. 6s, I mean, everyone's got Intelligence, but I want to make sure I've got some good training follow-ups. So I kept the 6. I'm going to multi-5 with a Intelligence and Brute Force, same with the 4s. 3s, I got a couple of characters that can use that energy, so we kept that in. And then we've got some low energy cards to kind of round out the power pack and keep some Spectrum on there. I ran all 3 of the missions because I don't think I'm running too many duplicates here, so I might be able to hurt the opponent more with the Battle for Zad than I'll hurt myself. Before, with the Lancelot's cards, I didn't want to lose any of his stuff and all his duplicates. That would be devastating for the deck, but now I think that's better. Then obviously we got the benefit to training cards that'll pair well with Greatest Soldiers in History and the training grounds. And then Shift should still be useful, protect Leonidas or King Arthur. Alright, so we'll see how this plays. Hopefully I'll be playing later on this week and continuing to try and get ready for regionals. So hope you enjoy watching it and have a great rest of your day.